featured speaker today. Mary Ann essentially runs the office here, so if you don't know her, Mary Ann is very important to Transylvania County. She's very helpful to the Master Gardener program, as well as all sorts of things in Transylvania County. Very knowledgeable. She's going to fill us in on work we should be doing.
That's right.
Yes.
Getting you out there.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Oh, for heaven's sakes. Okay, one quick thing for Master Gardeners. Hope Janowitz has offered to do a program for us, either one of those sedum pumpkin type of decoration programs or fall containers. So I'll be putting a note out to ask you folks if you're interested in participating in that, but I wanted to plant that seed for you, and so we're looking at doing some kind of a fun fall craft for a program. So we'll put the word out on that, and hopefully you'll be interested. And welcome this morning. I am going to talk about fall gardening in Transylvania County. I don't know how you folks are getting the weather at your house, but it was below 50 at my house yesterday morning when we woke up. So fall is on the way, and so we need to get things going. Best weather of the year, in my opinion. I love the fall weather, and so best time to work out in the yard. And first things first, and that is soil testing. So I did bring in soil test kits for if I convince anybody that you should be doing your soil testing now. There are a couple of real good benefits of doing soil testing at this point. It is free. You just mail it off, and there is no charge. The charge does start at Thanksgiving through the 1st of April. So if you want to get your soil tested, which I would highly encourage, now's a great time to do it. And the other thing is when you'll get your results so that you know what you need to do for fertilization. So if you need to fertilize grass, if you need to fertilize your trees and shrubs and beds, you're going to know what you need to do. So, and you can get out there and do it at the appropriate time. So soil tests for everybody. All right, next thing is talking about fertilizing. And what a lot of people I don't think realize is that the trees and the roots of the trees and shrubs actually do continue to be active and absorb throughout the winter. They can absorb nutrients above 40 degrees soil temperature. So if the soil temperature is there, then they are going to be absorbing nutrients, and so it's not a bad idea to fertilize them. However, it is recommended that you wait until after the first frost to do your fertilization because you don't want to promote soft growth now. So if you wait until after the first frost, it will still be warm enough, but it can absorb. Ideally, though, you probably want to wait a little bit later, closer to February, March if you can. But if you can't wait and you do feel you need to fertilize after the first frost, which we're probably talking beginning in November these days in our neighborhood, then that's fine too. As far as waiting to fertilize, wait, I'm sorry, I'm out of order here. And then, let's see, I think we pretty much covered that one. So, and then fertilizing your cool season lawn, that's the direction I was headed in. If anybody here has lawn that they want to take care of and make sure that it's looking good in the springtime, the times to fertilize are now and then after Thanksgiving dinner. So that was one of our master gardeners always said, work off your Thanksgiving dinner by going out and fertilizing your lawn. So the best way to do it actually is to plan on 3 fertilizations throughout the year. So you could do one now in September, 1/3 of the recommended rate, then in November at 1/3 of the recommended rate, and then go out in the springtime, early springtime when things are just starting to get going, and do your fertilization at that point in time. That should keep your lawn nice and healthy. As far as I've got it up here, the fertilization rate, you're going high on nitrogen. That's what the green grass wants. And if you are putting out lime per your soil sample, because cool season lawn grasses, they like a little bit higher than what we have as far as pH. They like to be between 6.5 and 7, and some of our native soils are down in the 4s. So you probably need lime if you haven't been applying it. So either buy your soil sample, or the estimate is about 40 pounds, which is a bag, per 1,000 square feet. So, and now is an excellent time to do lime, now through the fall into the early winter, because as the soil freezes and thaws, it actually draws the nutrients, the lime and the nutrients down into the soil and helps it work down into the roots area. So that's a good way to go about it at this point in time. And then adding organic matter. This is the time to be adding organic matter as your beds are getting cleaned out. You see our hardworking master gardeners up here adding organic matter into the raised beds. And you can work it in like Mary Ellen and Lynn are, or you can just put it on top and let Mother Nature do the work for you, whichever way you want. But you've got, options: aged manure, compost, soil conditioner, and then you got the chopped up leaves. I don't recommend putting unchopped leaves in a garden bed, but you can if you want to, but you're probably going to have to pull them out in the spring because they're going to mat down. I mean, they'll keep the weeds down, which is wonderful because we do have cool season weeds, but they are going to mat down, and they're not really going to do a whole lot of breaking down if they're not chopped up. And the last thing is cover crops, and I'm not going to go into sowing cover crops, but if you are looking to do it, you got to get on it. Now's the time. We are pretty much in cover crop sowing season, so if you are going to do that, get on it. So, and then the falling leaves. As you can see, we've got leaves starting to fall. Some of the sourwoods are turning, some of the dogwoods are turning. So we've got leaves. Again, we've got happy master gardeners up here. I love having the access to these photographs. So we got Cindy and then we got Maureen over here getting leaves that they're putting on the bed. We got that huge pile of ground up leaves, so they're putting that on all the beds over at Silvermont to add nutrients to the soil, and again, keeping the weeds down, keeping the moisture in. Falling leaves do have, they have a lot of carbon. So they've got some benefits as far as adding them to your compost bin to go with all those greens that we have. Seems like everybody's got greens, but nobody's got carbon. Well, this is an excellent source of carbon, or your browns. And they do contain a small amount of nutrients per leaf. But when you add up the millions of leaves that are falling on the ground, they really do make a difference in the amount of nutrients that you can add to your soil. They also, as I said, do moisture control, freeze protection, their weed barrier, erosion control, really important. When we get the winter rains and you've got naked soil sitting out there, it's heading for the French Broad. So if you can keep that soil covered and keep it in your yard, that's much better for you and for the French Broad and everybody. So, and of course it improves the soil texture. So for next year, your plants are going to be that much happier, as well as the other little critters that are living in it. So using the leaves, we've got several different ways. That's not my dog. I wish he was. He's so cute. As you can see, mulching the leaves down and leaving them on the lawn. So at a minimum, if you do have lawn, if you just mulch them down good, as opposed to bagging them up, that's not a bad thing, but do not leave them on the lawn whole, because we get back to that same situation about it's going to kill the grass, and then you're going to be sorry in the springtime. So mulching them up, that adds a lot of good nutrients to the soil. Piling them up out of the way in a back corner in making leaf mold is a wonderful use. You don't have to grind them up because you're going to leave them sitting there for a few years, and then you're going to get this fabulous soil or soil amendment, I should say, to add to your beds. And so that's the easy way to do it, just piling them all up. Chopping them up, as Mary's doing over there with her chopper, is an excellent way to do it with one of those little machines like she's got right there. Or you can do it with the lawnmower. That's what I do. I grind them all up, and then I run around in a circle into a pile and grab them and take them that way, or bag them. But that's an excellent way to chop them up and put them in the compost so that they're going to decompose quickly for you, and those nutrients are going to be available a lot quicker that way. So covering pots and adding a layer of insulation. I got this kind of uninspired picture, but basically what that is under there is it is some pots that somebody wants to overwinter that have, be it perennials that you haven't gotten in the ground. Anything with leaves, you don't want to do that. So if you've got like a rhododendron or something that you didn't get in the ground this year, you protect it, but don't cover it, because that's not going to be good. But anything that's either dying back and you're protecting the roots, you can cover them with leaves in a protected area, and that way they should come through the winter very nicely. Then you also have an option too with your leaves, and I've done this with a baby fig tree. If you've got something that's tender that has to stay in the ground, if you build a little hoop around it and then fill it all the way up with not chopped up leaves, because you want insulation, you want air in there. So you fill it up with the leaves well over it, because it's going to settle a little bit. But that's an excellent way to protect something that might be marginal as well. So, so that's an option. Grinding them into the soil, tilling them, not grinding them, tilling them into the soil is another option. Again, getting the nutrients directly down into the soil is a really good idea. And then you can leave them in the woods. You know, whatever, just don't ship them off your property. We want everybody that's got them to keep them. Lots of little critters do live in them. Insects are living in them, good and bad. So fireflies, there we go, fireflies. So there's a lot of good insects that are living in, you know, they lay their eggs in those leaves, and that's good for you, for everybody. So just don't ship them off. Although if you live in the city, you know, sometimes it's a challenge, but maybe you got a friend who could use them. So, and then, okay, autumn is time for planting. And a lot of people, of course, think that autumn is time, spring is time for planting, because that's when all the plants come out. But the best time for planting is the autumn. And one of the best examples is lawn. If you're doing a cool season lawn, unfortunately we are a little bit late right now. We should have been getting that in towards the end of August. But if you need to do some lawn repair, or you're putting in a new bit of lawn, when you leave here today, you are going to need to go and purchase some grass seed and get on it. So the thing, of course, is that fall offers warm soil temperatures. Spring doesn't offer warm soil temperatures. Fall also offers nice air temperature, so it's not too hot, it's not too cold. So this is the time to do it. And if you do have some new grass growing, leaf blower is a great way to get the leaves off of it, because you don't want leaves on it. Also, if you have established lawn and you don't got enough to get out there with a mower, get the leaf blower and blow them off into the shrubbery. You do not want leaves on your grass. And then if you do core aerate, now's the time to do it. And it's really good for your lawn. It loosens it up. And leave the cores on the lawn. Don't rake those up and toss them. So And then we've got planting trees and shrubs and perennials. This is the time for that as well, for the same reasons as the grass. You got the warm soil temperatures. And also you've got the nutrients are going down into the root systems of these plants before they go dormant. So if you plant now, you are going to have the benefit of the warm soil for that. And of course, you've got less watering with the cooler weather, and hopefully more rain. I'm beginning to kind of lose faith in that, but it's a little dry. So anyway, those are a couple of the benefits of planting. Less intense sunshine is another one that you need to take into account. If you go out there, even if it's still 70 degrees, 80 degrees out, the lower angle of the sun is not quite so hard on recently transplanted or planted trees and shrubs and perennials. So that's a good thing. And the reduced disease pressure, of course, that's fabulous. Around here, you all know springtime and going into summer is fungus season. We are pretty much past that. The insects, we are passing through that by now too. So that's definitely a benefit. And then we also have, the roots are going to develop over the winter, as I said, 40-degree soil temperature, they're still working down there. So you're definitely going to have better, healthier plants because you're going to have better root system in the springtime. And then also plants go on sale at the garden centers. Yay, we love that. So get out there and take advantage. So, and then transplanting trees and shrubs, wouldn't it be lovely if we all had one of those? Now, transplanting trees and shrubs, that is after we get a hard freeze. So we are looking November, and we don't want to be out there transplanting trees at this point in time because they possibly are going to be just too shocked to do well. So wait until they're mostly dormant after we get a hard freeze. And so the other thing is the best time, oops, sorry.
Marianne, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Going back.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me
Sorry.
about root pruning.
Okay, now root pruning is if you are planning on moving an established plant, shrub, small tree, what you want to do is you want to go all the way around the tree and basically cut the roots around the tree in the size where you would be able to do the root ball. So if you could do a big root ball, if you got this coming, but if you are, you want a root ball because they get awfully heavy. So if you go around and cut the roots, what will happen is you're going to cut the roots and they will form feeder roots in that zone. So then when you go out next springtime or in a year from now, depending on when you're going to do it, what it will do is we'll have created new feeder roots in that zone that you cut. So you go a little bit further out from there and you're going to take those feeder roots. Because if you just go in there and you just whack it out of the ground and haul it off, all of those feeder roots are gone. And so this is just kind of a way of reducing shock, transplant shock. This is the first step, and then the next step is going to be in the spring or like even a year from now, depending on what your plans are. But yeah, root pruning is a good thing for trees and shrubs that you're planning on moving. It will, especially if you really like them.
Before or after the first frost is not as important?
Root pruning, you can do that anytime, pretty much in the winter. You could get out there and start that now because if you do it now, they're going to start putting out those feeder roots that much earlier. So, yep, that'd be fine. Mm-hmm.
Marianne?
Yep.
I've got a camellia.
Mm-hmm.
So you literally like take a root slayer shovel and just go like this all around it until you feel like you have
Yeah.
that accomplished?
Yep. Yep, you go down, the 6 inches or so, just a shovel height, 6 to 8, and just all the way around to give it a decent sized root ball. No, you're just slicing it. You're not pulling the soil out. Yes, sir.
Don't you want to do like about a 5 times diameter breast height, kind of like distance out from the trunk?
That would be a good rule of thumb, I would think, to do, yes. But I think what we also need to keep in mind is how big of a root ball we're going to be able to manage. So yeah, but that's a good rule of thumb to go with. So yeah, you don't want to go too small. I mean, you don't want to go a foot out. You know, you want to go as far out as you can. So that's true. Yes, ma'am.
Another technique that was recommended to me at one point years ago was to do half of it, wait a little while, and then do the other half.
Like what's a little while? A month?
And I don't remember how long I was
Yeah.
supposed to wait.
No, that is another way you can go about it, as well as do half this year, half next year, and then the spring after you can do it. Yeah. So, yep. So that's an option as well. So, but yeah, it shouldn't kill a healthy shrub to do it all in one year. But you know, if you want to play it really safe, then you could go that way. And there is a method where you do actually dig a little bit of a trench and then backfill it with improved soil, or you know. But I don't know that we want to get into all those kinds of details. So, but yeah, you can look up information on that if you're planning on moving some small trees and some shrubs. You know, get some details on that. So, or stop in. One thing I do want to mention, the exceptions on transplanting. Fleshy roots should be transplanted in the spring. Things like magnolias, tulip poplars, oaks, birches, rhododendrons, hemlocks, and flowering dogwoods. So you don't want to do those until the weather starts to warm up a little bit. Same thing goes with your evergreens. Okay, so we're talking moving your weigelias and things like that after the first hard freeze. Yes?
Does this also apply to potted plants that you might want to, like I had a couple of things I started this last year in potted plants. I feel like they would be happier in the ground.
Yes.
Wait also till after the first harvest.
No, nope. Get that. I'm talking about transplanting right now. That would be considered planting out of a pot. Transplanting is what I'm referring to is out of the ground into the ground. So you were talking about planting, and now's the time to get it done. Absolutely. Yep. Go home and put that in the ground this afternoon. So. All right. So I think we got that covered. And transplanting of perennials. There are some, I mean, now is the time for transplanting perennials, but there are some perennials that do not like to be transplanted. And again, we're talking transplanting, not planting. And we've got the Baptisia, the lupin, oriental poppies, milkweed, Russian sage, and goat's beard, and red hot poker, peony, and established Lenten and Christmas roses. They do not like to be transplanted. And most of those actually seed pretty freely. So, you know, you moving the little babies, the little seedlings is one thing, but moving your main plants is not recommended. They do not like it. Transplanting peonies, though, the end of September is the time to do it. They get their own mention here because peonies are wonderful. And so end of September, good time to transplant your peonies, and make sure when you're transplanting those that you're very careful. You don't want to be breaking off those tender tuberous roots. So you want to get the most eyes and the most roots to go with it. So be very careful if you do have to move them. So, and then dividing perennials. Now this one here is an interesting one because, and for those of you who might, reading through here, you might want to take a picture of this list because there are some plants with taproots that do not want to be divided. And if you go to divide them, chances are going to kill them, not divide them, unless you follow some very specific and risky procedures, which you can look up. But the list here, you got your butterfly weed, milkweed, euphorbia, oriental poppies, baby's breath, your Japanese anemones, false indigo, columbine, red hot poker, lupine, gas plant, evening primrose, balloon flower, sea holly, bugbane, and clematis. Now, I'm saying divide. Now, some of these were on the list of don't move them at all, so I'm not saying you can't move them. I'm saying you don't want to divide them, okay? So again, they self-propagate happily by seed. Take those little seedlings and share them with your friends, move them to the other garden. Just don't try to cut them on plant in half. Other ones that are, actually they're called subshrubs. They're perennial growth on the top, but it's actually a woody little shrub underneath. And those you definitely don't want to try and divide, because it's like trying to divide a woody shrub. You know, you're going to kill it, basically, is what's going to end up happening. And there's an example of what these are. You've got your lavender cotton, perennial candy top, lavender, rosemary, your artemisias, Russian sage, garden sage, thyme, heaths, and heathers. And if you have any of those and you go home and you look at them and you'll see, oh yeah, they really are woody underneath. So just, again, those you're gonna, you know, they don't propagate quite so happily as the first column does, but you don't want to divide them. Just you can move them, but you don't want to divide them. And then now is the time for planting annuals for fall color. So absolutely get on out there to the store and get your pansies and your kale and cabbage and put those out there, and they'll be beautiful for the next couple of months. And then they'll kind of slow down, and the pansies will come back though after if they even slow down. Some of them, with the weather we have, they won't even slow down. So they'll keep going all through. But you do want to fertilize them, and you do want to make sure that they're getting some sun. So that's one of the things. If you just put them in the ground and you don't give them any fertilizer, they're going to peter out on you a bit. They're not going to be as glorious as the ones you're going to see at other places. And then this was one thing that I thought was really weird the first time I heard about it. But you can actually plant some cool seasons blooming flowers in the autumn, and they will come up in the spring. They will have better root systems. They'll bloom earlier, and they will just make a much better show if you plant them in the autumn. And the list here, I'm not going to go through the whole list. You can see what it is. But it basically is going to be a nice wildflower look for you. And they are annual. Some of them are marginal. I mean, you got things like the Rudbeckia, so that's in the Anise hyssop, and so those can be perennials for you. But mostly they're going to be annuals, but they'll be beautiful. They'll self-sow. I've referenced the Botanical Interest Seed Company on here, and the reason I did that is because they have an excellent write-up for each of these plants. So if you are interested in giving this a try, I would encourage you to check out the Botanical Interest site and look up the seeds. You don't have to buy them from them, but they've got some really good, accurate information on there, and it's very handy. So, okay, and then we are putting the vegetable and the fruit gardens to bed. A couple of things here is just real quick that October is the time to divide rhubarb and plant your garlic bulbs. So if you are going to be doing garlic, you don't want to wait until the spring. You don't want to forget. So you want to get that in October into November time frame. And then the cool season vegetables, they can go in now, but you're going to have to cover them probably in order to have good success with them, because we are a little bit late at this point in time. But if you still want to put in a little bit in the vegetable garden, you still have a little bit of time to do that. You can harvest your mature green tomatoes before the first frost comes, so that's a benefit of leaving the tomato plants going if they're still happy and healthy. Does anybody here have happy and healthy still going? Oh, excellent. That's wonderful. All right, that's wonderful. I'm very glad to see that. So, So, in the vegetable garden, if you've got parsnips, peas, Brussels sprouts, and kale still going, which they should be because this is the time for them, if you let them get a little bit of frost on them, they will taste better. So you don't feel you have to rush out there and harvest all your parsnips and your Brussels sprouts and things before the frost because they want to get a little bit of frost, and that will definitely make them taste sweeter. So just a tip there. And then removing and composting your annual plants and debris after they die back, stop producing or you're just tired of looking at them. But make sure if it's got disease or bugs, don't put it in your compost. Bag it up and ship it off because you don't want to bring those back next springtime. And of course, you cut down your asparagus when it's brown. Hopefully nobody's cut their asparagus already because the ferns are what are feeding the roots. So you want to make sure that you cut them down once they're brown though. And then in the vegetable, your tree fruits, make sure that you pick up any fruit lying on the ground. If the deer haven't gotten it already, or the squirrels, if you've got fruit laying on the ground, make sure you pick it up and throw it out because it's going to hang on to spores and disease, and you are going to end up reliving that in the springtime. And if you got those hangers on the apple tree, try and get them off if they're not too high. And again, get rid of them. But the deer are cleaning up under my apple trees beautifully. They are doing a fabulous job. It's a mother and child team, and they are doing a wonderful job. So I'm very pleased with them about that. So, okay. Cleaning up annuals and perennials. Again, the same thing. They're done. Put them in the compost. Disease, insects, no. And then if you want to leave your perennials, you can leave your perennials standing as long as they're not diseased. Again, to promote the insects, giving them a place to live. A lot of them have seeds on them, coneflowers. The birds will come and clean the seeds out for you. So that's always a nice thing to do. But if you like it a little bit neater, or if they're looking really ratty and don't even look like suitable housing for some overwintering insects, you just want to chop them all down and put them in the compost bin. So I personally, and this one about cutting down the iris and the daylilies in the autumn, that's me personally recommending that because if you let them fall down over the winter time, then you have to lift them up to cut them. Whereas if you can go in now with a weed whacker or just your, pruners, loppers, whatever, now's the time to do it while they're still standing and then just rake them up. So that's just a little tip from me on trying to make your lives a little bit easier. The other thing is that they do harbor a lot of disease, those straps, the fungus. So if you can get them out of here now, get them out of here now. That is my recommendation. And what I've found also has worked out really well, depending on how dry they are, but I've got a cordless hedge trimmer, came in with a kit with my cordless weed whacker and stuff. And that cordless hedge trimmer is great for taking down perennials. It really works extremely well. Knock them down and then just rake them up and haul them off as opposed to going in with the pruners, clipping each one individually. You want to know how to do something quick, ask a lazy person. And so that's my tip on that. And then we talked about the sub-shrubs a couple minutes ago. And what you want to do is leave them alone for now, okay? There's not going to be a benefit to pruning them back now. Leave that growth on them through the winter. It will continue to feed the roots, and then you can neaten them up in the springtime if you want to.
I've always wondered about peonies. Are you supposed to cut those back?
Absolutely. Yep.
So you always cut the peonies.
Yep, you cut the peonies back. You're going to cut that back once they start to die back, especially if they've got any signs of disease on them. You definitely want to cut that back as soon as you see it. But yeah, once they get hit by frost, you cut those back.
About how high off the
You can go all the way down to the ground.
Thank you.
Yeah, with peonies. Yeah, and peonies, when you transplant them, you don't want to transplant them too deeply. They like cold. Big peony country is actually Alaska these days. That's where they're growing a lot of the peonies, is in Alaska. They like it cold, so like 2 inches below the surface, not a bunch of mulch or anything on them, and that'll keep them happy.
Thank you.
Yes?
How short do you cut the irises?
You're going to take those all the way down to the ground too, or as close to it as you can get. So, yeah, over the winter, there's no benefit of leaving the iris straps up. So, because they're just gonna rot, and in the springtime, it's going to be all new growth coming up off of those tubers and root systems. So, yes, Mindy.
So, I know that the native bees will go into the hollow stems of different plants.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any idea of how long you should leave them up and like when you should cut them to make sure the native bees have got to do their stuff?
I do not know the answer to that. Rodney apparently knows the answer to that, so we'll defer.
So the recommendation is to leave them until really late spring of the following year, when you see the leaves coming up out of the rosettes, that early growth. And going back to Mary Ann's comment about cutting coneflowers and other plants as well, because a lot of people do like leaving those so that burrowing insects will have a home. But if you leave the seed heads, let's say you don't have grass, let's say you have moss lawns, you'll pick out thousands of purple coneflowers and anise hyssops the next year, and you'll be cursing and pull out all of your hair. And once we get a really hard frost and those have died back and you've got those ugly stems, you can cut those lower and lay them in a pile so that any insects that are in there are still going to be able to thrive in that stem as long as you've given them access to get out either end.
So, for the lazy gardener,
You can just leave
may
it.
I just bend them down?
I don't see
Or
why
does that
not.
not leave a hole in the other end?
It doesn't, but I don't think there needs to be a hole in the other end.
The only thing about that, you're going to have to cut them eventually.
Yeah.
That part where you bend it down for most of that stuff isn't going to break. So if you're going to clean it up in the springtime, you're going to have to cut it anyway, so you might as well cut it now. But like if it's on the edge of the woods and you're just going to leave it, and then, yeah, I mean, that's better than nothing. That's better than nothing.
So I could, like, that horrible place, you know, I can cut that bee balm and take it over to the edge of the woods and then
You could do that too. I don't see why not.
don't do anything.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's fine. I cut it at the ground. I don't see any reason to make a bug habitat over there. Sure. Yeah, that sounds good. And now we all know what happened to Rodney's hair. Coneflowers. It was those coneflowers. Darn. All right. So all you guys who want to keep your hair, don't grow coneflowers near your moss garden. All right, so thank you, Rodney. Okay, moving along here. All right, a couple of perennials to leave as is. Now, the foliage on these helps protect the root systems of these plants. And as we're getting a little less cold, shall we say, it might not be a bad idea from a frost heave perspective, because not only does it keep things from getting cold, but it keeps things from getting warm. So the recommendations are for your coral bells, lady mantle, and red hot poker is to actually leave the crown, the foliage around the crown, to protect the root system. It's also recommended to do that for hosta. But if you have snails, slugs, anybody here not have snails and slugs on their hosta? Oh, okay. Oh, we got two people.
Who has hosta?
Oh, who has hostas left? That's a good point. Yeah, I got hostas, I got snails, and I got slugs. They lay their little eggs in the hosta leaves, and then they overwinter, and so you're growing your own little brood of slugs and snails. And so if you do not want to grow your own slugs and snails out in your hosta bed, you're probably just better off cleaning up that hosta foliage and getting rid of it. So, and again, and we've got the comment here about the low-growing perennials. You don't need to do anything with those. You don't need to do any kind of pruning or anything, because you want them to bloom in the spring. So if you go in there and you start neatening them up, you're going to probably get rid of your blossoms. Except for the hellebores, if you've got the diseased leaves, we get a little fungal issue sometimes with the hellebores. They turn brown, but that's a hand prune job right there, one at a time. But they will look a whole lot prettier in the springtime if you go and get rid of those dying and ugly leaves in the autumn when the weather is beautiful. And then when the weather is not beautiful, and the hellebores are blooming without all of those ratty looking leaves, you'll be glad that you did. So that's just another tip from your Auntie Mary there. Okay, mulching in fall. Mulching is a wonderful time. As you can see, is that not the happiest group of mulchers that you have ever seen in your entire life right there? I tell you, it's got to be fun to mulch, just looking at that picture. I tell you what. Of course, you know why we mulch. We're protecting the root zones of our perennials and our cool season annuals, as well as our trees and shrubs. And then also the erosion issue we talked about before. We do not like erosion. We want to cover it up with mulch, being it leaves or wood mulch, whatever works for you. Compost is excellent as well. We are enriching the soil, reducing temperature swings, important. Frost heaves, bad. We do not like frost heaves for our plants that are in the ground, because what it will do, it will throw our roots out of the ground and expose them to the cold weather. So discourages cool season weeds, which we'll be getting to, one of the banes of my existence. And also get it done while the weather's nice. I mean, just so happy. This little picture right here I threw in there, because you want to keep the mulch away from the trunks of the trees. You've got the rot issue, you've got the bug issue in the summertime and such. In the wintertime, you got the voles and the little field mice. They love to come right up underneath that mulch, and they like to chew your crab apples, your hawthorns. They just love to do that. So keep the mulch away from the trunk so that they can't sneak in under cover of mulchness. And if you do have a problem with nibblers on your tree trunks coming up, or your cat scratch it, a little, or your deer nibble it, exactly, your deer nibble it, a little cage like that wrapped around it is going to make your life a whole lot better if you really like that tree. And if you don't like the tree, well, then there you go. So,
How far away from the trunk?
You don't want to be too far away from the trunk. You don't want to be too close. And the idea is not that this is like a permanent installation. So, if you leave an inch or two in there, that's going to keep the teeth off of it, and it's going to impede people. Like if you put it this far out, then things can get in there. So you just you're trying to keep teeth out, and you're trying to keep the actual whole animal out. So you want to go with something small, but just a couple of inches around it. And if it's something you're not going to see very often, though, out in the woods, go further than that, because you don't want to be girdling that tree with that, because that'll make a mess of it.
And that's for any age of tree, a new tree,
Yes, yes, if you've got a problem with somebody nibbling it, the animals really like the smaller ones. They like the tender bark. That's what's really good, is the tender bark. That's what's so delicious. But if you, for some reason, you've got something working on your older tree, deer antlers, perhaps, then this will help with that. Yes?
Just a comment, if it's a small tree, we've taken a tomato cage and put it a little around it, and that's worked. Just, just keeps them away.
Yeah, you got to keep them away. Beavers, I don't know if any of you kids have beavers, but yeah, and I understand that the more expensive the tree, the more the beavers like it. So if you have a $1,000 Japanese maple tree, yeah, invest $5 in some hardware cloth. So
Amazon has these spiral things.
in the spirals,
They're
yep,
cheap and it's really easy to cut it whatever length you
yeah,
want. It's really
yeah, the spirals are good too. There's,
plastic spiral.
yeah, I like these because they're a little bit lower profile than the plastic. But yes, Mindy,
I was gonna say, but the plastic ones are good for younger trees
Mm-hmm.
because they've got it so that the sunshine can still come through.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, we were gone for 2 weeks and the beavers took 24 trees.
Mm.
So we've started for preservation purposes, pretty much covering everything with the plastic ones. Because we can, even the trees that aren't above the area, we can cover those over and help protect them from the beavers. And the sunshine can still get through. It just looks kind of funny because all the leaves are going like this.
Yeah.
But they will come up and pop out, and then we can take those off later on and change things out.
Yeah, and those are good too for your blueberries and things in the springtime. If you got nibblers in the springtime, they're good for that as well. And prune blueberries, February into March. So, yep. And if you need blueberry consulting, you know Bart's our blueberry pruning expert. So, and I need to start talking faster here. So, okay, weed control and prevention, cool season weeds. All right. If you do have a problem or a concern with cool season weeds, which is mostly your chickweed, henbit, and hairy bittercress, which you can eat if you want to, then you want to consider going with a pre-emergent herbicide in September. So again, after you leave here, swing on down to the store. There are some organic-ish types, corn gluten-based, if that is a concern of yours. You do actually put it on the mulch. If you have mulched beds that have weed issues, you put it on the mulch. Otherwise, you would put it on the bare soil. And then you would need to reapply late in the season, probably in the January time frame, which is getting into winter, and we're just talking autumn. But but that's something, if you do have a concern about cool season weeds, now's the time to do a pre-emergent to try and address that. The other thing is the Japanese stilt grass. And now is the time to be watching. Paco says he's already seen some in flower going to seed. I have not, but apparently mine's wait until I'm away for a little bit and then it's going to come out. Pull it. If it's got flowers, seed heads, put it in the trash bag and get it off your property. Spray it with herbicide if you're inclined, and it is very susceptible to herbicide. You do not need to go in full guns blazing herbicide with this stuff. I've been told that even the vinegar, the horticultural vinegar, will take it out. And if you've been mowing, you need to keep mowing until it's killed by frost, if you've been mowing it down. Okay, so it's a challenge. It seems to be very, very happy in Transylvania County. And so do your best to keep it under control for your own peace of mind. And then perennial weeds, you leave it now, it's going to be there in the spring, bigger and better and happier. Just like any other perennials that you're planting now, it's going to be happy. All right, this one's to me is kind of important, and killing your woody vines, now is an excellent time to do that. And the reason is that they are actually drawing their nutrients down into the root system in the autumn. So if you are going to try and kill, I mean, you see we've got your bittersweet and the kudzu is not really considered a woody, but the wisteria is, and I just kind of liked the way that was killing that tree right there. What you want to do is you want to cut the vine and treat the stump with herbicide. You can dig them out, and that's an option, but the amount of herbicide that's being used to treat these things compared to the amount of damage that they're doing to your property as well as everybody else's property and the forests and everything, because what you're going to do is you're just going to paint the stump or the vine that you cut. So you take a little foam brush and a little cup with some either triclopyr type of a product in it, or even a glyphosate, 41-50% type of glyphosate, and you're just going to paint it on that little area that you cut, and that will be sucked down into the roots, and it should take care of the plant. So you don't have to be out there with the spraying all the leaves and spraying the vine and everything like that. So I would encourage you, if you've got problems, I just discovered one of these guys sneaking up into one of my crabapple trees. I didn't know he was there. I thought I had eradicated all of it. But I would highly recommend that if you've got problem vines that you treat them now. So, so that's what I'm going to say about that. Okay, your tender tubers and corms. Man, I got to start talking faster. I'm sorry. You can lift them if you are concerned about them. And as we are getting a little bit warmer, we're not having the really, really hard freezes in the wintertime these days. A lot of people are leaning more towards leaving what were considered too tender to leave in the ground before. And everybody used to dig all their gladiolas and all of the dahlias and such. But some folks now, myself included, we are leaving them in the ground and mulching them very heavily. However, I will say, if you would be devastated to find that they did not overwinter because you left it in the ground heavily mulched, I would definitely encourage you to lift them and store them inside. Yes?
If you want to move gladiolas at this time from one location to another deep soil location for overwintering, is it okay to take them before the leaves have died or turned brown?
You can. Usually, though, you want to leave the leaves as long as you possibly can. But, everything is, hopefully we're going to, do the best we can. But if you're not going to be able to lift them, then, you can leave them in the ground. So, you can leave them in the ground over the winter or not. But what I would encourage you to do is leave them till they turn brown, and then lift them and move them or divide them or whatever you're going to do. So, yeah, that would be best. Just like the daffodils, you want to let them get as much energy from the greenery as possible. So that is my thoughts on tender tubers and corms. And that's something that there's a lot of information on out there about how to store those dahlias over the winter, but that's why leaving them in the ground's a whole lot easier. However, there is some evidence that shows that if you do lift them and then replant them, that you actually have a more vigorous plant. Plus, you can divide it and share it with your friends if you do lift them. So just something to keep in mind. House plants, they've been spending the summer outside, hanging with the bugs. So you should be bringing them in now, because when it's getting under 50 degrees, which as I said at my house, it has been already, it's time for them to start moving back into the house. Depending on the plant, some of those plants, you think, oh, well, freezing, 32 degrees, it hasn't had a frost yet. it will impact those plants getting down cold at night. They don't like that. So if you can bring them in the house, give them a good spray, wash the bugs off, keep an eye on them for bugs that were hiding when you washed them, so that if you don't want to be bringing in problems. Or butterfly chrysalises. So. And then we got holiday plants. Okay, so this is a real quick one. This does actually start in the autumn. If you are going to want to encourage your Christmas cactus and poinsettias, you need to start hiding them away for 12 hours a day and keeping them cool. So that is a challenge. I don't know how anybody does that in the home, but that's... Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I put them in the basement.
Yep.
And I don't water them.
Yep.
I just don't do anything. I put them in a dark area
Mm-hmm.
and let them be, and then bring them back out in the spring and they bloom every year.
There we go. That's exactly how you do it. Yep. So you can repot up your amaryllis if you've already got them in the basement. But yeah, that's perfect.
You don't have to even water them.
Yep. You just leave them down there, and yeah. Mm-hmm.
If you want to force them for Christmas, you bring them up early.
Earlier than that. That's right. Yep, that's exactly right. So, yep, so for forcing spring blooming bulbs in the winter, pot them up in early October. And so things like your paper whites and such, put them in the fridge and give them that chill that they need. And then you can pull them out, and then in January, then you bring them out and they will start going crazy. And but yet now's the time to start thinking about those plants. Okay. Soil prep for spring flowering bulbs. Most bulbs prefer to have a pH of 6 to 7 to grow healthy roots. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, our pH is, usually considerably lower than that. So again, a soil test will let you know if some lime application is necessary. Our clay soil is fine if you amend it. It's perfectly fine. If you put some organic matter in there, that's great. It's recommended that you do the whole bed. If you're putting in a bed of bulbs, just don't go through and dig a few holes and drop your bulbs in. If you can do the whole bed, they're going to be that much happier. But that's just the way to go about it. And they recommend that you actually loosen the soil 3 inches deeper than where you're going to put your bulbs in, so that the roots actually can go down instead of sideways. So, but yeah, we are good. We are good for bulbs, for spring blooming bulbs. And then you want to wait till the soil is about 55 degrees. That's the soil, not the air. So that means we are looking more towards the end of October into November at the earliest. You can put narcissus daffodils in a little bit earlier than some of the other bulbs, but it is recommended that you wait. And what happens is that if the soil is warm, it tells the bulb it's time to grow. And so the bulb decides it's time to grow, and then it kind of gets stunted. So you don't want it to start to grow before the springtime. The roots will grow, but you do not want the sprout coming up out of the bulb earlier. So that's why you want to wait until it gets cold. So, and then we've got some information about, yes, obviously you put the flat side down, the pointy side up if you see it. If you don't see it, you can put it in there and the bulb will grow the right way. It will know which way it's going to, the green goes up, the roots go down. So don't spend a whole lot of time fretting that the bulb is not going the right way. And then, of course, you've got, if you've got the critters, a little bit of hardware cloth, at least over the top, if not actually caging them, is a good idea to keep them from getting in there and digging them out and hauling them off. Yes?
What is the best source where you get your, tulip bulbs from?
I do not, we're really not supposed to recommend places like Brent and Becky's or, places like that. And then, hold on one second here. I can't even say this, yeah, and I know, don't think I'm gonna do the whole thing here. I don't want anybody to have I had the name of a company. It's in Bantam, Connecticut, is another one I shouldn't recommend, so I won't. But that's where I got a lot of information, and they're really good. But yeah, the bigger ones are gonna, they're pricier, but you're gonna get better bulbs and better service from them. So, okay, so we got that, and apply the mulch after the ground freezes. When it comes to bulbs, we do not want to keep the ground warm. Okay, so mulch it after the ground, and we don't really freeze hard here. We've got like a 6-inch frost layer, and so when it gets, say, December time frame, mulching is a good idea. So, okay, and then slow release fertilizer, 5-10-5. Middle number means blooms. Okay, so 5-10-5, it might say bulb booster, it might not, but that's about the ratio you want. Follow the directions on the package. Broadcasting is better for bulb beds. Do not put fertilizer in the planting hole because there's a good possibility of burning the roots, certainly slowing it down. And top dressing 3 times, okay? So if you want to fertilize it, top dress when you plant the bulbs, and then when the bulbs first start poking through, and then after they're done. Those are good times to fertilize your bulbs. And then transplanting and dividing, usually as a result of overcrowding. I mean, there are other issues, but overcrowding is usually why you have failure to bloom, especially with your daffodils. So you could possibly have that little rodent right there chewing on your bulbs, and hopefully you didn't cut down your greenery too early, but that's a possibility too. But basically what you want to do is you want to dig down in there and see what's going on, and if they need to be divided, mark them and divide them in the autumn. You can do it in the spring, but that is not ideal. The best time to do it is going to be in the fall. So, and then site recommendations, 6 hours of sun, well drained in a neutral pH, and stay away from, if you use salt on your driveway or your walkway, keep the bulb set back. So I'm gonna scoot through here because a couple of things, I had to share this one. So again, if the flower bulbs aren't there, they probably rotted in wet soil. If they didn't rot, somebody ate them. Okay, those are the 2 main reasons, is they rotted. The overly acidic soil, they're probably not going to rot, they're just not going to thrive, but somebody ate them or they rotted. So again, digging down and seeing what's going on, and don't plant there again is probably a good idea. Now, spring blooming bulbs, the bulb companies do not recommend putting them in containers because they do not thrive in containers, and they can rot if they are not treated properly. So the idea with that is to give it a shot, protect them, and if they do well the first year, that's wonderful, and then if you go further on, next year, they're probably not going to do much of anything, but if you want to leave them in the pot and see, you can. But usually it's a one and done when you put them in containers. So, and because tulips are in this area pretty much one and done, they're not a bad one to try in containers. Put your tulips in the container and hope for the best, and you'll have a beautiful display. And then when they start to peter out, get some new ones next year. Now, unfortunately, I am talking too slow, so I'm going to run through this, but I want you folks to see this, what I've spent many, many hours putting together. These are deer and rodent resistant bulbs, which is very important to us here, deer and rodent resistant. Narcissus, of course, are toxic to deer and rodents and bunnies and everybody. So I highly recommend, more than anything, the different kinds of daffodil bulbs that you can plant. The flowering onions, another excellent choice. They're a little later. There's so many of them. You just need to look at go into the catalogs, go online. There are some gorgeous ones. And again, they're not going to get eaten by the rabbits, rodents, and the deer. So that's a good choice for you folks who have issues.
A question, Mary?
Yes?
I found that where I plant those alliums,
Mhm.
that it affects what else will grow there.
It could.
So
It-
do we
yeah.
need to, where do we look up compatibility to see how that's gonna do?
That should be a real straightforward one, just to look up, you know, what to avoid planting next to onions, because they are onions. They're onions, absolutely. They're onions. They're garlic. So yeah, that's a possibility. So the anemone blanda, also known as the Grecian windflower, again, that one is going to be deer and rodent resistant. That's going to be early, and they're going to be cute and little, nice in swaths. This one is actually the only native to this country bulb that I came across, which is a wild hyacinth. They are native to the Pacific Northwest. However, they do grow here. Okay, and again, deer and rodent resistant, and they are going to be tall and have those real pretty blue flowers on them. So that's something that you aren't going to find in the local store, but you can find those online, and everybody seems to have them. Then we've got the Glory of the Snow. Again, another pretty one for drifts that's going to come early. If it gets snowed on, it's still going to continue to come back. It's not going to get crushed by the snow. Then we've got the two different kinds of crocus. We've got species crocus and, and then the giant crocus. And the species are going to come a little bit earlier. And again, these are deer resistant, but the little furry creatures in the ground, yeah. So if you've got issues with chipmunks, voles, field mice, you protect them or stay away from them or hope for the best. Those are your options.
And the deer, my deer eat.
Your deer eat crocus?
Yeah, they eat it.
Oh, okay. Well, they
come back.
think twice. Then we're going to put it that way. We're going to say think twice. Then we've got the fritillaria, which, you know, those things they're pretty spectacular. They come in all different sizes, height-wise, and different colors. Again, something to look at if you're looking for something a little bit different. I mean, they really are beautiful plants. They're very interesting. These guys up here, the guinea hen, some people might call them guinea hen plant. That is, those are really cool looking. So, and then the galanthus, which is the giant snowdrop, those come out real early, and they're so cute. When you see them, they're a sign that all is not lost. Spring is going to come. And so I really like those. And then the hyacinths, they're supposed to be deer and rodent resistant. You know, gone, yeah. And they rot. They're gorgeous. If you really, really like them and love the smell, force them in the house or put them, you know, do your container with your hyacinths in it and put them up on the porch where you can just enjoy the smell. And wear gloves. Some people had developed an itchy reaction to the bulbs. So thank you, Jane.
That's what keeps the other animals off.
Okay. So it causes.
Very toxic.
So if you've got hooves, though, apparently you can. Yeah. And then you've got your wood hyacinth, your Spanish bluebells, and your English bluebells. They are different plants, but they are both deer and rodent resistant, and they will come up. They are not the same thing as Virginia bluebells, which are not bulbs, but they do look similar. But they're a beautiful plant. They will propagate readily, and I would highly recommend them. That bee just is enjoying that very much. Okay, and then we've got the summer snowflake, which is basically just looks like a giant snowdrop. And I love those. they're so dainty and delicate, but they're pretty tough. And they like moisture. So if you've got a moist area, those guys are good. They will propagate themselves, and I would highly recommend them. Rodent and deer proof, supposedly. I don't know. Is anybody going to throw that one out there, Cindy? Cindy's rolling her eyes. We're gonna say resistant, but and then of course you got your your grape hyacinths. So, and those are also, and then the tulips, also known as deer candy, just like daylilies, but they don't eat the greens. So, you know, I was so mad. Yeah, anyway, all right, no stories. I mean, but there are loads and loads of them. You've got the ones that, this one is the slide on the ones that will perennialize a little bit better. They don't like it when the soil gets over 70 degrees. That's part of their problem, why they don't do well. They don't overwinter extremely well here. They don't like moisture. They're very picky. But some of these smaller guys, the Kaufmania, the Greggy Eyes, those guys will do a little bit. And I'm done. Okay. So, yay! I'm sorry that I kept you all over, and I appreciate your patience, but I did want you to at least know that there are some deer-resistant bulbs out there, and I would encourage you to plant them. You've got time to buy them now, because they're not going in for at least a month and a half. So same goes with your garlic. Yes, Rob?